Welcome to Farming Britain. In this episode we look at longhorns, attacks on sheep and a battle to keep a family farm going. I'm off to the Surrey Hills where I meet a couple who produce livestock, wildlife and weddings. What's it like being poor? One way of finding out is to start with 1,000 acres in the Surrey Hills, some of the most desirable land on the planet, less than 40 miles from Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square, and trying to farm it. That's what the Hutleys did 60 years ago, and here is where Nick and Jane Hutley have got to today.
Nothing's the matter with the digger. The digger is
Everything is the matter with the digger.
Equipment.
Because the venue has had to buy the digger, and normally we would
very lucky to own a digger.
That digger has not been out once this year.
It has.
You need to use it 30 days a year for it to be even cost effective, let alone.
Just here is an example. We need a digger here because
yes, and you've got a digger in the farmyard. And it hasn't come here.
I'll walk it down this afternoon.
Well, there's the other job.
And do digging.
More urgent with the digger, but it hasn't been done either. There's all sorts of things.
Well, I'll be digging.
Yes, you will, because
we got a lot of digging.
It needs using 30 days.
It's a very nice digger.
Yeah, I know, but now you're running out of time to do 30 days. You'll be on the digger for a month.
Very important piece of farm equipment that I have to hang on to. If I leave the farm, I take the keys with me because it'll be sold. The security lock on it is the slightly unreliable thing. So, yeah, I'm just preparing you for it not starting. And it hasn't started. This was a dairy farm. Gate Street was a dairy farm, and then there was Honeymead was a pig farm, and Thorncombe Street on the other side of the hill. That was just. They look after my mum. My father died about 2 years ago at the age of 97. My mother's 92. And my father wasn't really, well, he wasn't a farmer. He was really in the city, but you know, he loved the idea of Wintershall, and on the farm we grew, misguidedly, a lot of wheat and barley and oats, misguidedly because it's a very, very sandy soil and we shouldn't really have been ploughing it, but that's what we were all told to do in those days with the Common Agricultural Policy.
Nick is taking me on a tour of what remains of Wintershall's working farms. Nick's wife, Jane, is clear. This is not so much farming as fighting a rearguard action against the removal of food production from the UK.
All that's going to happen in Surrey is that little 180-acre farms are going to get sold, and they will be one field here to another nice house and another field. They'll all just be pony paddocks. They won't be producing food in any shape or form, and we will just become sort of a version of suburbia outside the greenbelt.
So we have longhorn cattle. I've been a society member for many years. We've got clean sheep, which are Welsh, and we've got some pigs. The pigs are really for sausages, if I'm being honest. They're just for the wedding venue. We converted some old barns into a wedding venue about 25 years ago, I think, 30 years ago, and it just grew and grew and grew. It was an accident, but it then became a very important part of the farming income.
On his rounds this morning, we will see Nick's other livestock, his sheep, his pigs, his brides and his grooms, because that's the kind of diversification that works around here. First, the Longhorns.
We've got lots and lots of badgers. We've got a big badger set the other side of that house, and then behind us we'll go up there and have have another look at it. So no, we've got lots of badgers, but we're in a 48-month TB testing area, which is the best you can be in. It's a fairly small pocket around this area of the Surrey Hills. That means we're a low risk TB area, which is strange because badgers carry TB. But our badgers are relatively free of TB, which is why I want to look after our badgers. There are members of the public who would like to kill a lot of badgers. But if we were to do that, if we were to introduce a cull here, for example, all we would do would be to create a void, and other infected badgers would come into our area. So I'm quite protective of the badgers, which is an unusual voice in the cattle industry. It's a terrible problem. To be honest, I don't understand it. I farmed in Australia for many years, and I was involved with the cattle business in Australia. In Australia, they eradicated tuberculosis, or TB, or bovine tuberculosis in cattle. They eradicated, and they've got wild buffalo. They've got all sorts of carriers. And okay, it was in the 60s, and they did it. Now, if you can do it there, surely we can do it in Europe. The cost to the country goes beyond just the financial costs that the farmers might be losing. The cost to the country of losing an industry, losing a dairy industry, losing a beef industry is enormous, and it'll be a long-term cost. It'll affect tourism. It'll affect so many other industries that rely on just the farmers.
We go on to look at Nick's sheep, and that's when he relates one of those stories that farmers near urban areas tell that makes your skin crawl.
It was early one morning. We had 50 lambs in the field, and I was told there were some dead ones. I didn't really believe it because I knew that they were very healthy lambs. They were ready for the market. They were going to go off the next week. I said, go back and have another look, and they came back and said they're not only dead, but they've been run over by a car, and I found that hard to believe. So I rang the police. The police said we've got 16 or 18 lambs that have been run over. The first response was, how many have you got? So I said, well, we had 50 in the field, and they said, oh, well, you've got lots left then, as if never mind about the 18 dead ones. They were clearly not going to take this seriously at all. So I then rang the BBC, not expecting a great response, if I'm being honest. But however, I was surprised. They turned up 20 minutes later with an entire camera crew. I did ring the police to actually say, by the way, the BBC are coming. And of course, 4 panda cars turned up just as the BBC was setting up. They had ticker tape and blue plastic tape. It looked like it was a crime scene, but it looked like a crime scene. The police were all over it, and as soon as the BBC left, then of course the police just folded up and they weren't interested. Anyway, I pursued it with the police. They told me that they thought they knew who it was, which I found rather surprising. I asked them about that, and they said, well, we can't really tell you, but they're not from this area. They were from sort of the sort of Leatherhead area, apparently. And they said, we're going to put a warrant out for them. They then, after about 3 or 4 days, they apprehended these 2 young men. They had them on camera all the way from Leatherhead, obviously not coming into the field. They then released them without charge, and I followed it up a number of times. I mean, there was DNA evidence, but they didn't take the DNA from the mud guard. We found a mud guard here that had been ripped off, and it was, of course, covered in blood. So they could have matched that to the car, but they weren't interested in doing that. It was sort of lost in the police system, but clearly they weren't going to do anything about it, and they weren't particularly interested in it. Rural crime is a big problem. You know, if my workshops not locked up, then I really expect it to be sort of looked at. So I lock it up. The gates are locked, but on this occasion the gates were locked, but they took them off the hinges. So we lock with a combination, but it was a horrific attack. I'm still quite shocked about it, really. Clearly they've got some mental problems. It's not a normal thing for anybody to drive into a field at 4 o'clock in the morning and run lambs over. It's not a normal response.
At the top of the hill, Nick proudly shows off his Oxford Sandy and Blacks.
They are wedding food, yes. We thought it would be a good idea to encourage our wedding clients to enjoy the countryside as much as possible. So we've got lots of walks for them to do. We've got lamb that they can have, and then they have breakfast in the morning. So we do sausages. We do a little bit of bacon, but we don't really produce enough bacon, and so these are for sausages. It works well, apart from we thought it would be nice to show the bride before what the piglets look like, and that made them vegetarian rather than meat eaters.
Back at the yard, Jane is working on herding brides, grooms and guests at tomorrow's wedding. Around 90% of the farm income is weddings.
Tomorrow the bride will arrive, today rather, the bride will arrive for tomorrow's wedding, and she's going to check in here with her bridesmaids, and she is going to have a girly evening, and she will stay in this room, and there's another room, a kitchen, another bathroom, but then she will very quickly get settled in tomorrow morning in here, where she'll get ready, and Holly's done some lovely flowers already, and then it leads through to the venue and the registrar's room. We have an incredible team. India is the leader of the team. She's been with us since 2016.
This is obviously the heart of the venue, the barn as well, and it's probably the one main spaces that has remained untouched. Everything's developed a lot over time, and we're always making constant improvements to make sure it's on trend and looking lovely. However, the barn has remained pretty much the same since it was rebuilt. But also it's got all those kind of touches now. For example, the chandeliers, which are being done now, are a big part of the room. But then you've got all these lovely spaces out here that have been built as the venue's grown, just to become, as I said, a more on-trend, seasonal space. In the barns, you've got the ceremony, the wedding breakfast, the evening party, so the dancing. And then through here, you have got all of the reception spaces, which you'll see which are extremely weather permitting as well, which helps when you're planning a wedding in England. Unlike this year, as we said, which has been very lovely weather. So you've got the orangery space, the bar area, the lovely gardens, which are overlooking the field of Longhorns, because it's surrounded by the working farm here, as I'm sure you know by now.
We always have our cows on display. So in the wedding field, we always have 2 or 3 cows with their calves. And of course they're Longhorns, so they've got great big long horns, and it's astonishing how and I try and engage with the guests. Often I call the cows over and I give them some food so they can join in with some of the photos, the wedding photos, which 90% of them or 99% of them want to do. But they get confused because they've got horns and therefore they're bulls. And I said, no, they're cows, they're Longhorns. Oh, they're from Texas, are they? No. Longhorns are from England. They're our oldest breed, arguably one of our most successful breeds.
I think you'd get to that point where you'd be showing them the animals, and I think I'd always ask, are you vegan? And they'd think, why such a random question? And then you'd either explain to them that these pigs get eaten, or you just say, these are our lovely pigs, and just leave that bit out. But people like the pigs. They're a nice touch. It's very much a style now. People want to be in the countryside. They want to be surrounded by nature. And I think Gate Street is the epitome of that. You've got the beautiful surroundings. You've got the farm. You've got the cattle. People love animals, especially if you're coming down from London, which a lot of our clients are. They want to really feel like they're in the heart of the countryside, which, Gate Street is. Linking it, I mean, you've got things like, you know, farm to fork and things like that. So we have our online farm shop, we have the meat, etc. that we're working on at the moment. We don't necessarily have the demand because it's quite small scale to supply 100 legs of lamb to every wedding. Unfortunately, we're not to that scale yet. Starting prices for peak April to September, you're looking at around 7,000. It's so broad. I've personally done probably over 1,000 weddings here now. So seeing, the beauty of it is the budgets are, there's such a range and you can do it here on a smaller budget, but as you said, you can go all guns blazing and 100,000 plus, you know, you could really go all out if you wanted to.
If you want the perfect event, you want India and her team, because they're all Holly, Annabelle, Leanne, who's now on maternity leave. Good luck with that, Leanne. They're incredible and they're passionate and they mind and they care about what goes on, which is what you need.
The wedding business has expanded onto the family's land with a woodland wedding venue to add to the barn. Nick is involved in some of the wedding logistics. He can even do the catering.
We call ourselves bangers and mash because that's what we were supposed to be doing, just simple bangers and mash, which I thought I could do. But the bride was fairly insistent that we had something else, so I said, well, we can do lamb, Gate Street lamb, our own lamb. We got lots of it from the farm shop in the freezer. So we cooked, I think it was 18 joints there was shoulders and legs, and 130 people. Dauphinoise potatoes, carrots and parsnips. Parsnips at this time of the year is quite hard to find. The gravy was the challenging thing because I wanted to make nice gravy. And lots of canapes, but it was fun. We really did have a lot of fun. Jane didn't have so much fun. She had to make the puddings, lemon possets. She made 80 lemon possets and 80 small trifles. But it was a big operation. Took a long time. She's going to say, I can't believe this.
Nick would like the professional caterers who come in and use Gate Street's kitchens to buy more from Gate Street Farm.
They don't really care. They can go to the supermarket and they can buy 15 legs of lamb. Why bother us? And it's annoying. It's very annoying. With beef, it's more difficult. With lamb, we can virtually, there's the shoulder, which is great, the leg, which is great, rack of lamb is great. We can do lamb burgers for outside events. So, and we can use the whole lamb carcass really very efficiently. Pigs, we do the same. Anything that isn't prime will go into sausages, which we can use in the farmhouse. With the beef, however, it's more difficult because there's only so much stroganoff that you can sell to people.
As well as the farming and wedding businesses, Gate Street has an online butcher's shop.
It's click and collect, so we have an online business, and it's quite seasonal. Depends on whether we've got lambs available. During COVID was our big chance when we had the farm shop. We had lots of clients then would come, click and collect. They promised me that they would never buy meat from a supermarket again. And then obviously we know what happened as soon as the supermarkets opened and restocked. They left without trace. It's very sad because our meat is better than the supermarket meat. I think even the supermarkets would admit that. It's grown here. It's sort of miles in a truck are virtually zero. It's very healthy. As I say, it's nearly all organic. I mean, it's not organic because we haven't got the label, but they're treated as organic. We're not supposed to have favourites, but they're definitely my favourites. The cattle, they're wonderful. If I'm in a bad mood, I can come and sit with the cows and I will get better.
Why? How does that work?
I don't know. I understand them and they understand me, unlike some people. So if there's a problem, then it's a bigger problem with the cows, obviously, because they're bigger and But the sheep are harder work because there's always something to do with the sheep, whereas the cattle tend to look after themselves. And these are Longhorns, so they're a very ancient British breed. They live outside. They've never been indoors in their lives. I feed them silage in the winter. Sometimes I give them a few nuts just to keep them easier to manage them, so they'll come over when I call them. They're friendly. They're very well natured. They're very easy to calf, and well natured is really important. We get a lot of walkers. We're on lots of different footpaths, and I don't have to worry that the cows are going to be dangerous. I'm more worried about the rams knocking them over than the cows knocking them over. This is Molly. She's from Snow White, which was my favourite, but Snow White, sadly, she got to an age where she wasn't really happy any longer. The oldest Longhorn is that one. She's had 19 calves, so she's about 21 years old, which is pretty old, particularly as they have a hard life. They don't come inside. And this summer has been hard for them. You can see they're not in fantastic shape. We're just starting to feed them silage. That's our silage crop. That whole area should be full this time of the year. We're going into the winter with half the amount of silage we need, and we're not the only farm. Barley straw, I used to feed barley straw to them, but that all goes to the electricity companies now, so it's all burnt as biofuel, which is a waste in my opinion. It's good food, it's good cattle food, it's good manure, it's good for the soil. And I would have thought that more solar panels or wind energy could replace their need to burn agricultural food, really. It has started this morning because I knew you were coming.
The problem for Nick is that, farmer though he is, the farm doesn't make money.
The old farm buildings here we let out. This is a fairly large, they're Perfect Pitch. They're a marquee company. They do a lot of weddings, outdoor events, and they store all of their marquees in the winter. And they've got lots of trailers, as you can see. And then these buildings here are let to smaller businesses.
Next stop is Nick's mother, Anne Hutley, who lives in a cottage next to the manor house that the Hutleys bought from a Mr. Alfred Stiles.
He was a builder from Wimbledon, and Gate Street had, I wished I'd seen it, I think, picture postcard Tudor buildings. I mean, they were apparently beautiful.
I remember the old barn at the bottom of Bonhurst, and he had a bear in it.
When we bought it, that was when we knew we could go farming proper. And I had a dream. I don't suppose you read Cider with Rosie, but it was going to be Lazygate Farm. Do you remember? And I was going to be this wonderful farmer's wife, smiling, rosy cheeks, and, you know, and Pop was coming in with a hay fork on his shoulder.
I don't know where that dream came from.
Anyhow, I also remember it was the time of AI, and I remember my husband saying, or your dad, saying, this is unnatural, I'm giving up farming. But in actual fact, it was the beginning of the farming.
We were very early in introducing some of the French breeds. We had Charolais, Limousin, Simmental, we had some Simmental, and we had some Italian breeds. We had Chianina and Romanola. The Italian breeds weren't very successful, if I'm being honest, particularly the Simmental, the Chianina. The Limousin were very successful. We exported semen to Australia and America, and we were that was very successful. We still got some ampules of Fernand bull, our Limousin bull, and we had a herd of Limousin cows, a herd of Charolais cows, a small herd. We also had Herefords, we had Aberdeen Angus, and we had Suffolk sheep.
I remember him clutching this seaman flying to Australia in those days, saying, you know.
Fernand bull was our main bull. Yeah. I remember seeing his calves in Australia, yes. Right in the outback.
I was a child of the war, and you know, you dug potatoes. And my first holiday in the war was, you went on a farming holiday in those days, pitchforks and, you know, lovely things. When we got married in '54, we always wanted to be farmers, but you had to earn enough pennies to afford to be one. We'd been looking for a little farmhouse in a village which was an easy commute to London, that one day we could extend. Wintershall was exactly the opposite. I've got the original deeds of Wintershall, 1226, the date St Francis died, and I guess Gate Street's all of that age too.
When we started farming here properly, we planted lots of hedgerows, and it was interesting. I then came across some old maps on what the farm used to look like, and it was uncanny the way that I'd put the hedgerows back where the old fence lines and hedgerows used to be. So we split the farm up into lots of small fields, because of course in the old days big fields was the trendy thing to do when we were ploughing them and growing cereals. So they're now hedgerows. We partner with the Surrey Wildlife Trust, who are our neighbours just the other side of us, and we're creating habitat banks and wildlife corridors for the wildlife to come from the top woods on down through back to the badgers. The badgers love them, of course, and the badgers live in this rue here. There's a rue that divides up where those hazel trees are. That's full of badgers. A rue is an ancient wildlife tract, really. It's a very wide hedgerow, but has just gone completely wild. So the cattle do graze in it. I've fenced on one side. The cattle graze up, so they keep the undergrowth down, but there's lots of cover for the wildlife to go backwards and forwards.
Staying on wildlife, Nick picks up Jane and goes to look at part of the farm that's had its ups and downs. The downs include a project to introduce storks and bring in eco-tourists to look at them. The storks eventually left.
Well, we're maintaining it, we're looking after it. We would love to be part of another reintroduction scheme of anything like that. We have got some truffle trees that we introduced, and they're growing well. We've got hazel trees or hazel bushes. The roots were infused with the truffle fungus, I think it is, spore anyway, and we bought these in from France, planted them 5-6 years ago, and they're doing well. I don't know whether we've got any truffles. We need
a dog.
We need a dog, and
we need a bit of luck, and we need for it to rain, so that the lime is taken into the soil. Rain is what we need.
But the storks actually lived with the truffles, so they work together.
In the early days, yeah.
This is a couple who are doing their best. Like all farmers, their eyes are firmly fixed on the future. Like all farmers, they've learned financial skills, PR skills, and, in their case, wedding planning skills. They are up against a government that's eyes are on the present, on making money from tax on farms now. I have to ask Jane, why bother?
It's another thing. I mean, it can't define. If you spent your whole time worrying about it, I mean, I just have to hope that this is not the government in 4 years' time, or when I pop my clogs or Nick pops his clogs. We've just got to hope that it's a government that is forward-thinking and that the rules have changed. Although, you know, the trouble is they very rarely change back to be what they were. But I think that if we value farms and businesses, and in particular small family businesses, you know, whether they're farming or I mean, just think of farming as a business. If you can't hand them on in a tax efficient way, they're going to go, you know, because you just can't afford to do it. I mean, 40% is a massive amount, and to borrow that amount of money now at 7%, a commercial mortgage, the best you could get would be 7%, and you'd be lucky to get that. I mean, that's just on a loan of 300,000. I mean, that's over 20,000 a year before you've even done anything else. So it's not sustainable. I just hope that not just for farms, for all small businesses, there is a proper business relief. And it's the same thing, really. It doesn't have to be separately an agricultural relief. It could just be all lumped in together as business property relief, so that all of us can be sustained long term.
Jane is hardworking, very fair, very honest, and an inspiration, really. So. And also a taskmaster, and you know, you have to deliver on time, on budget, but we work well as a team, I think. I don't know what she thinks. Don't ask her. Whatever you do, don't ask her. All is forgiven.
For the farm, the weddings, the online butchery and maybe one day the truffles, visit gatestreet.co.uk.